Thank you, Mr. Mayor, honorable council members, Mr. Hildebrand, for the invitation to speak to you tonight about the 2020 census. As you stated, I'm Mark Lastoria, partnership specialist for North Carolina, one of about 30 in the state. It's important to know that I live in North Carolina. I currently live in Charlotte. Prior to that, I lived in Cumberland County and Harnett County in and around the Fort Bragg area for about 17 years and then moved to Charlotte about 3 years ago. I'm also fortunate enough to own a beautiful piece of heaven right outside of Collettsville that my wife and 2 kids, we spend every single weekend at. And if I could take an extra day or 2 off as well, I get up there also. And we enjoy every minute of it. And I got to take the family to Southern Crossroads for breakfast over the weekend, and they really enjoyed it. So that's my wife's new favorite spot.
Thanks for helping the economy.
Yeah, exactly. It's important, as you said, 2 key things with the 2020 census. It comes down to political power and the tax money that we pay every year to come back to the local economy. So with that being said, I'd like to go into a small presentation and then yield the rest of your time to questions or concerns that you may have.
Okay.
The goal for the 2020 census is to make sure that we count everybody once and only once and in the right place. No one ever complains of an area being overcounted. They always complain about an area being undercounted. So we want to ensure that we are getting out there, identifying where people live, making sure the census is available to them to take, and then we get the response and we get that rolled up. With that, as you know, the decennial census occurs every 10 years as mandated by the Constitution, but there are also other surveys that the Census Bureau carries out in between that period. There are annual American Community Surveys, then an every 3-year American Community Survey, and then an every 5-year American Community Survey. So if you think about the 2020 census, any decennial census, it is a snapshot in time. We want to make sure that everyone living in America, not a citizen, everyone living in America is counted on Census Day, 1 April 2020. That is our snapshot in time. The American Community Surveys demonstrate trends and get you that key business data to see if people want to expand a business, start a new business, or if you see any types of trends in other demographic areas that you may want to highlight and address. As I stated, the census is carried out in the Constitution, Article 1, Section 2. Prior to the Revolutionary War, it was estimated that there were 1.6 million people residing in America. However, the first census was carried out in 1790, and it came to find out that there were 3.9 million people living in America, and that first census was carried out under President Washington's tenure. Fast forward 230 years as we go into 2020, we are now trying to count 329 million people in America. That is a significant leap forward, and we want to count them once and only once and in the right place. And what's key about that is the political power, as we already stated, and the economic impact of that. The political power, as you said, sir, there are 435 representatives in the House of Representatives at the federal level. Those seats are allocated based on census data. Additionally, each year, the U.S. Congress disperses $675 billion of tax revenue back down to the state level, comes down to the county level, and into the cities and towns as well, and funds key programs. That is a significant amount of money, and if you calculate that over a 10-year period, it's over $4 trillion, excuse me. This is a heat map of congressional seat gains and losses. We've all seen it. It's not anecdotal. We've all seen it, the exponential growth that has occurred in North Carolina. All you got to do is look around and see how many different license plates are driving through our towns now, and they're coming from the states that are in green: New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Michigan. Everybody's coming down here. This heat map from the 2010 census shows that South Carolina picked up a seat, Georgia picked up a seat, Texas picked up 4 seats. So what are the projections for the 2020 census? Right now, what's at stake is strong estimates show that North Carolina will pick up 1 more seat. If the count goes very well, we will pick up 2 more seats. And it's going to come from those states that are hemorrhaging seats. And that allows us to have more political power and sway at the federal level. These numbers here represent the Western Piedmont COG. I'd like to just draw your attention to the bold data. Caldwell County and then the city of Lenoir. You have the 2000 response rate in the center column there, 71% at the county level, 73% at the city level. Flash forward up to the 2010, it jumped 8 points at the county level and 7 points at the city level. Significant jump. The main reason for that jump is a strategy that the U.S. Census Bureau employed, and that is the Complete Count Committee. It was not present in the 2000 census. It was present in the 2010 census. And what that Complete Count Committee is collecting up the trusted voices in a community and conducting outreach with the people that reside in that community to get them educated, engaged, and energized to complete the census and respond to the census. So with that said, the 2010 population for the county and for the state is in the far left column. What's in the far right column are the no responses for 2010. And what you're seeing is 21% and 20% respectively. That is, if you put that into a dollar amount, and if you look at the information that Bob Coates, the director of the Governor's Complete Count Commission, has, that is a significant amount of money that's left on the table. And everyone needs to respond so that money comes back in. Because as we know, you can have the greatest need in an area for those federal funds to come back in, but the money doesn't follow the need. It only follows the numbers. And those programs, as you know, education, healthcare, transportation, social services. One of the key things that people think about all the time is the school national lunch program. That is funded through through tax money that comes back in through census data. Transportation, roads don't build themselves. All that money that comes back down from the federal level, that's all the tax dollars that we're talking about, $675 billion per year. I just want to make sure that we all know what's at stake, because I drive on those roads. I go to the hospital. My kids are in public school, much like everybody else here in this room. If we can get the rest of the community behind that, we could get those numbers back up to a much higher rate. And don't get me wrong, Caldwell County and the city of Lenoir are standing good. They're very close to reaching the governor's goal of 82%, but I think we can do a lot higher and grab in tens of thousands of dollars more back into this area. A lot of people are concerned about privacy and confidentiality of the census data. It is important to know that anything that we respond to on the census is sealed for 72 years. That data is collected, compiled, and tabulated, and then presented to the President of the United States no later than the 31st of December, 2020. And then it'll be put out into census blocks and tracts so that you can drill down on that data. But that's as low as it goes. Your individual responses, are sealed for 72 years. And the reason for that is everybody, way back when they established that law, that was the life expectancy. If you were present for that first survey and the first census and the next census, that 72 years was a life expectancy. So say I pass on after, this census and the kids want to know what the dad put down in his response. My wife or my children are the only ones allowed to access that data, period, a direct descendant. So you could go back to your great-grandfather and look at his census data, or what your great-grandmother would have put down as well. But that's the level that is secured at. Additionally, we don't share information with other government agencies. What is compiled and tabulated, that is the end result of that. We do not share it with local law enforcement. We do not share it with ICE. We do not share it with the FBI. It has been challenged in court and has been upheld. That information is secure and will always be secure. Any information that a canvasser or lister may come across, they are sworn to preserve that information for life. So if a lister goes out and is verifying addresses and they come across Miss McCletty's house and they make sure that Miss McCletty, that's still her address there, and the next door neighbor comes over and says, hey, I haven't seen Miss McCletty in a couple of years. Does she still own that house? We all know that information is a matter of public record, and we could find that information very easily. But that lister is not allowed to divulge that information, even if it's in the white pages. That's how strictly that oath is enforced. And it is also enforced that it could be punishable for each offense up to 5 years in prison or a $250,000 fine or a combination of both. It's also important to note during the census, much like any big national campaign, there's always somebody out there working in the margin, working in the black on that, trying to exploit what's going on. Census personnel will never ask for a full Social Security number. We're going to only ask you to verify the last 4 or 5 digits of your Social Security number. We're never going to ask for a monetary donation. We are never going to send information on behalf of a political party, and we're not going to ask for PINs or passwords or anything like that. Any type of lister, canvasser, or even myself will have an identification badge, and the canvassers will also have a satchel as well. And that information will be provided to all the points of contact at the county level, down to towns and cities as well. Again, demographics, a lot of the information that you find in surveys, and take for instance the Pew Research Center, that all starts with census data. And those are the other American community surveys that I talked about that pull in and gather those trends as well. Again, the decennial census is that snapshot of time. Everybody living in the United States and where they're living at on Census Day, 1 April 2020, is that snapshot in time that we're going for. So if somebody just moves into the city of Lenoir on March 31st, they should really be filling out their census data on 1 April for the city of Lenoir is where they reside. What's key about the 2020 census is this will be the first national census in the world that will be carried out on a computer or smartphone. We expect 90% of everyone who responds to a census or an American Community Survey to respond to the 2020 decennial census online or by smartphone. 9% remaining of that, that's where the complete count committees come in to develop strategies and tactics to motivate everybody else to fill out their survey online or by smartphone. I'll use Caldwell as an example. I spoke with Dr. Phipps over at the the superintendent for the schools in the county, and I pointed out Caldwell has a K through 8th grade school, or I'm sorry, Caldwell has a K through 8th grade school. But the people that reside in that area don't have steady access to broadband internet, and they also don't have a cell phone signal in most areas. He has agreed to open up the schools on Saturdays, and in a partnership with the 2 churches in Caldwell, they will motivate everybody in the community to come down and use those computer banks at the school to fill out their surveys. So those are the types of strategies and tactics that we're looking at within the complete count committees to make sure that we get everybody counted once and only once and in the right place. And then for the remaining 1% that we can't quite make that happen, there are 2 things that can happen. They can still do it the old-fashioned way, which is getting a hard copy of the actual response questions and filling that out, mailing it in, or calling the 1-800 number and responding over the telephone. Or they can wait for the canvasser to come around to their address. The canvasser will come to each address that has not responded, knock up to 3 different times at that location, and if they cannot get anybody to respond at that location, they'll go over to a neighbor, and they will get the best information they can from a neighbor. And that's how we're going to try to get to 100% of everybody responding for the 2020 census. Key to the 2020 census is that we are hiring over 6,500 personnel in the state of North Carolina to support the 2020 census. Those are the listers and the canvassers and the backside support personnel. We like to hire people local in the area because they know the area. They are a trusted voice, a familiar face as they go door to door. Now, that being said, there are a lot of help wanted signs in this area, and that's a good thing. It's a strong economy. When you go up to Walmart, the first thing you see is they have open applications and they're hiring right away at $11 an hour. What's different about these census jobs are they are part-time jobs with up to full-time hours. You can pick the days that you want to work and also the hours within those days you want to work. They pay from $13.50 an hour up to $19.50 an hour, depending on your experience. Plus, you need an automobile because you have to get from point A to point B, and you will get reimbursed at the government travel mileage rate of 58 cents per mile on top of that. Training will be provided, and they will also be paid during that training period. So it's a great opportunity for college students. It's a great opportunity for stay-at-home dads or stay-at-home moms who are keeping up with things or with the children in the household. And the Census Bureau loves senior citizens. They're very dependable. Senior citizens are looking for a great way to stay engaged. I'm not calling anybody here a senior citizen. Let me be clear. But senior citizens are dependable, and they're always looking for a way to contribute back to, the place where they were born and raised, or the place that they're calling home as well. What's key to all of this is the time to apply for these jobs are right now. It's generally a 60-day pipeline to get people brought on board. And the reason for that is because they have to get a federal background check. And even at the public trust level, that federal background check takes about 60 days. Again, what I'm looking for is, providing you with this information, asking for the resolution of support for the 2020 census, and ensuring that we're able as a community to count everybody once and only once and in the right place, so that way we have proper representation in DC, and we're bringing back as much as that lion's share of money that we pay out in taxes each year is brought back to this community so we can go forward and do good things. That being said, I'd like to reserve the rest of this time to basically take on any questions that you may have, listen to any concerns that you may have about the 2020 census.
Go ahead.
Yes, sir.
What will be how will you get information out to try to stimulate that heavy response you're wanting from online and smartphone behavior? So what are we going to begin to see ad campaigns? What will prompt me as a citizen or as a responder, not necessarily a citizen, a responder, to go to my smartphone and do that? How will you get that information out?
Well, regarding campaigns, information campaigns, at the national level, you're going to see a very large, wide range campaign start on Super Bowl Sunday. There will be a Super Bowl commercial, just like the 2010 census. Coming down into the state level, that's already ongoing. Every chance they get, they're pounding that in. You can listen to public radio and hear at least once a week they're talking about the 2020 census and what it's going to do for Western North Carolina, which is a great thing. Coming back into the county level, Deborah Murray is going to lead the Complete Count Committee for Caldwell County, and she's going to develop strategies and tactics to make sure that we're reaching everyone in all four corners and every hauler out there to make sure that they're counted once and only once and in the right place. What's going to drive you to that computer or your smartphone is in March, in 5 different tranches, the Census Bureau is going to mail out a letter to each listed residence. That residence could be a house, an apartment. It could be somebody living in a motel as well. And it's going to give them an alphanumeric sequence. They'll take that alphanumeric sequence, go to the website, enter that in, verify their name, that address where the letter came to, and then they can complete their census. 10 questions in 10 minutes. That's all we're asking. The long form census that we all grew up with, the one that I can truly remember is the 1980 census. They wanted to know how many bathrooms we had. That's the American Community Surveys that I was talking about earlier. So we want to make sure that we're getting everybody counted once and only once and in the right place by just asking 10 questions in 10 minutes.
Thank you.
Mr. Bill?
The presentation you just did was really succinct and well done. Can we publish the PowerPoint that you just presented to us? Could we put that on our city website or our social media platforms, things like that?
We can there's a longer version of this, and then there's the short version that has specific information for the Western Piedmont COG. I just have to get that one slide cleared, and then once I do that, you can actually publish this shorter version if you choose, or you can have the long version up front.
Okay. I think that would be really great because our social media has been getting lots of hits. And then, like, for me personally, I'm a teacher at Caldwell School, by the way.
Oh.
And I know that if we can get this information out through government entities, we reach a lot of people in Caldwell County really fast.
Absolutely, and I hung
Josh was already
flyers
met,
at
I think, with them and is getting this information put together.
Yeah.
True, yes.
Great, all right.
Giving us
Yeah,
the
and the
thumbs
post
up.
office in Collettsville was very helpful as well for allowing flyers to be put up, so.
Okay.
My question is around security. I mean, with
Yes, sir.
the phone surveys and all that good stuff, which is great. I think it's fantastic. But it's like you said in the presentation, there are going to be people that said, "Hello, I'm with the Census Bureau, and for $10 I can do this. I can expedite this for you," or whatever like that. And so you got all these bad people. Are you guys doing anything on that front to go to like our senior centers and those types of things to really kind of say, "Look, this is how this done," just to kind of combat that?
Yeah, there's actually 3 responses within that question.
Okay.
First, anything like a nursing home, I want to address that up front. That goes into the group count, which is also like prisons, dormitories, barracks, things of that nature.
Got it.
Reaching out to the senior center as well, that is already being incorporated at the complete count committee level. And then there are information videos that are going to be made available that can run on the public access channel or in waiting rooms and things of that nature too, that are educational in nature, that says this is what a canvasser does and does not do. And then there's an additional layer within that. As we know, there are a lot of people that come to America and they don't speak English. And children end up becoming the navigators for those families. Those children become the trusted agent and will fill out the census for the family. Anybody within a community-based organization or faith-based organization that holds an event to allow people to come in and use computers or a hotspot to fill out their census, they may have someone there to help them fill out the census, but they will only ask them the question, and they may say it in Spanish or Laotian or something of that nature, and they will put their response in as is. They will not guess or anything like that, but that all comes through the training that occurs at the complete count committee level. I hope I answered your question. If not,
You answered my second question with your final answer there, which was about the language issues, about how are you reaching out to the Latino population, the Spanish-speaking population, the Hmong populations
Yes.
that are prevalent in these areas. So that was...
And we do have information that is published in 12 different languages, but when I was meeting with Caldwell County Schools, I was informed that there are actually students that speak 28 different languages, and they just had a family that showed up from Egypt, and nobody in the family speaks English.
Yeah.
So there are challenges out there. That's why we lean heavily on the community to help us through trusted voices, elected officials, formal leaders, and informal leaders to develop strategies and tactics that work.
Okay. Anyone else? Any questions?
Good information.
Very good
Very,
information.
very well done.
I appreciate everybody's time. Thank you.
And the best way for us to help is just to be advocates. Is that what
Be
you're
advocates,
saying?
public endorsements, attend census events. Mr. Hildebrand agreed to a several number of commitments. Those commitments are very benign if you're to read them, but when you actually go out there and participate in them, that says a lot. We all lead by example when it comes to the census, and our word ends up becoming our deed, and people follow.
Got it. Good.
We got the resolution
Oh,
for you.
excellent.
And thank you, and we wanted to thank you for being here. Great information. Any way we can help, anyway, please let us know.